Hello, welcome to a special Inside the Tape preseason edition. Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, and of course, when we're talking Inside the Tape, you know we're bringing back our tape breakdown guru, Greg Cosell. Greg, I know you've been busy, as always, with your nose inside the tape, both college and pro at this time of the year. But we are turning the page to the NFL season, and I'll just take this moment to announce now to our mainstream podcast and YouTube listeners, you're back for another season on Inside the Birds, Inside the Tape, every week throughout the NFL season. So you ready? You got the gloves on?
Oh, I can't wait. I just can't wait for the regular season to begin, Geoff.
I bet.
I mean, now the college season, it's a big weekend of college football. I'm actually looking forward to that, but I can't wait for the NFL season to begin.
So basically, let me let our listeners know. We took, this is metaphorical, we took Greg's arm and twisted it around his back and said, can you please watch Eagles preseason? And he was like, oh man, do I have to watch preseason? And we said, yeah, for the show. He said, okay, we're going to do it. So we're going to throw a bunch of preseason footage questions at Greg, but also our Patreon members, just wanted to let them know, Ask Greg Cosell will be back each week as well in the NFL season. They'll get to ask your questions personally to Greg, football related questions, we hope, to Greg. Let's start getting like life therapy type questions, Greg.
That's right.
Greg's good enough to take all of me, and it's funny because we sometimes go over the time, and you're like, no, it's okay. Keep asking. I'm like, wow, that's great.
No, I love it. Those guys, I imagine we'll get a lot of the same guys, but they're great. They ask great questions.
We'll have new ones. We have new ones
because they know what I do, so they don't ask me questions that they know that. Like for people like you guys, that know what I do, you don't ask me about things like character, leadership, things that, there's no way I can know about. And I'll be the first to admit that,
All right, let's move into some Eagles preseason tape. Greg, the story of the Eagles preseason, and I'd be fascinated to know if you had even watched tape of this guy coming out of college. I know, that'd be a very long shot, is Darius Cooper, the wide receiver from Tarleton State, who from day one to the last day was just very, very consistent in his approach and his performance at camp. He was not a training camp darling, so to speak, because those guys are usually guys who don't make it and can't play. This kid looks like he can play. Anything that jump out when you watched him?
Well, here's what I did. So I watched all Tanner McKee's dropbacks when he played that first game, and threw a lot of passes.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I'm watching Cooper, because he was a factor. And I'm like, who is this guy? So believe it or not, after I watched that, I went back and I watched Cooper at Tarleton State.
You did? Oh, I didn't think you would. Okay, that's awesome. All right, go ahead.
Now, he was much thinner, by the way, at Tarleton State.
Yep.
And he was explosive. I came away impressed with the player watching him at Tarleton State. He had an explosive element to his game. Now, then I just thought to myself, God, he's bigger. He almost looks body type like A.J. Brown. He still looked pretty quick, though. I mean, it didn't look like he was slower. So again, all I have, because I wasn't at training camp, all I have is the game and then seeing his college tape. But body type, he's kind of like A.J. Brown. I mean, just seeing what I saw, I would say that he's got linear speed and outstanding body control. Like those were two things that stood out to me. Linear speed and outstanding body control.
Greg, the thing that impressed me, now I don't know if it's Tarleton State tape showed it, because he came there as a quarterback.
I know.
A receiver. But the way he taxed the football,
yes,
that was incredible. It really, from the very first practice, kind of like you see a number 41 undrafted free agent, you see him have a good first day, you make a note of it, but you don't think much of it. But when you see him dominate every practice, he went from the 3s, the 2s, and then when Brown or Smith was out, they moved him up with the 1s. You're like, okay, now we're taking it seriously. This kid's got a real shot. And look, they're probably still going to be heavy 12 personnel, but remember, he's got a 3-year deal. Dots is on the final year, so is Mechie. So it's fascinating. I'm so glad you went back, because Tarleton State was, remember, Greg, no combine invite, no all-star games, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
No, and I didn't watch him through the draft process, but then I watched him, a couple of weeks ago after that first preseason game after I watched McKee. When he caught that touchdown down the right sideline, where he went up and got it, good hands, extended, body control, worked over the middle of the field. I'm not, look, you don't compare guys to, like I'm not going to sit here and say, gee, he looked like A.J. Brown. But stylistically, with the weight he gained, the body type is similar. That's kind of what he looks like.
It's a great. I was standing next to Andrew DeCecco during a camp practice one day. We were watching him. A.J. Brown was out, and I think another receiver, Devontae, might have been out, and he was standing next to John Dotson. And I said, Andrew and I were like, you know what? You can't. Sometimes you can tell when a rookie free agent wide receiver looks like. They're usually rookie free agents for undrafted free agents for a reason,
right?
Like Taylor Moore, very undersized slot guy. You can tell he doesn't look like the starting guy. He was standing right next to John Dotson, and I said, you know what? If these guys were wearing the same number, I don't know if the helmet on, know who's who, because that's the first thing that stuck out to me, Greg, is that he had the body type of an NFL wide receiver.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting.
So he's up 15 pounds. Like you guys said, I mean, I've heard from people as well that he's pretty much been good every day. He's not like a flash in the pan as far as training camp is concerned.
Yes.
Right.
Good stuff.
All right. Let's go to the defense. That's where most of the questions were. Yep. Last we spoke to you, you said about Josh Uche that there's something in him, right? That there's a reason why he was drafted where he was and had that 1 year in New England that was a breakout year. There's something in his body, I believe.
I did.
After watching the preseason tape, what did you see?
He's got natural quickness. He's got change of direction. He can redirect. He's got traits. It's very hard for me when guys don't, get moved around. I mean, I remember that year in New England a couple of years ago. He looked like an up-and-coming player. I mean, he looked like a really good player. They used him as a pass rusher. They had a lot of stunt concepts that year, and he was very good at that because he's got body flexibility. He can bend. He's a really good athlete. So that showed up on tape. I mean, I'm not looking to see if a guy gets sacks. You know that, guys. I don't look, I look for the way a guy moves, how he uses his hands. How does he go about trying to beat a guy when he's rushing the quarterback? It's there. I don't, beyond that, I can't tell you anymore. It's there. I mean, look, right now, if they start the season, I assume that Hunt and Smith would be the outside backers, but they're not each going to play 70 snaps a game. We know that. That's not going to happen. So there's going to be guys. So it's Uche. They kept Ojolera. Yeah, and he's there. Another guy that has traits. And they kept one more guy. Who's the other guy?
Okoronkwo.
You know what? He's another guy. I believe he came out of Oklahoma, right?
Forget the school. He's been with a couple of teams.
Yeah, he's another guy that has traits. When I remember watching him coming out of college, and I thought this, and he had moments in Cleveland, by the way. It's not like this guy hasn't played in the league and hasn't shown up. He's played meaningful snaps in the league. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, based on what he did over the last half of last season, one could think that Nolan Smith is really on the way to becoming a really good football player. I mean, he really had a good second half of the season. I mean, you could see that however they're coaching him, he's supposed to be an incredibly smart kid and really a good kid. You could see that he took to coaching. He started to use his hands. He started to understand how to play off contact. I mean, he could be an ascending player this year.
So, Greg, let's stay on the defensive line, the front, and talk about Ty Robinson, the rookie, and Gabe Hall. What do you see from them?
Gabe Hall's a fascinating guy to me because Gabe Hall is an excellent athlete for a defensive tackle. What he needs to do is to develop more strength and become more of a power player, but he's a really good athlete. I watched every one of his snaps. There were examples where he used his hands effectively, where he understood where to place his hands and then to work off that. There were snaps where he did show some strength in, almost a two-gap type player where he played off the contact. I remember one in particular where he showed knockback power, with great arm extension to immediately control the blocker. There was one where he did that against the tight end, which is still really good, but you have to, it's against a tight end.
Right.
But I think that, if he can become more powerful, more consistently, I think he has a chance to be a really solid rotational player in this D line.
Exactly the scouting report on him, Greg. Even still today, I was talking with someone from a different team saying, "Hey, Gabe Hall looks good in training camp. He's doing well." And this person said to me, "Well, he's always been a great athlete, but is he playing strong?" That was the question, because that was the
that's what the tape showed.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the tape showed. But so that's what he has to work on. And sometimes strength is not just like how much he can bench press. It's how you use your hands.
Right.
Because if you can place your hands in the right spot, I mean, so many times with what defensive linemen study is offensive linemen, how they set. In other words, I'm just going to use this as an example. And I don't want people to think, oh, you're making a comparison to this guy. This guy was one of the greatest of all time. That's not the point of what I'm going to say. Think of Reggie White's hump move, okay? Mm-hmm. Everybody just, oh my God, he's so strong. Well, what he did is he studied offensive linemen, particularly tackles. And you might remember Max Lane when they beat New England in the Super Bowl. What he would do is study when an offensive tackle, when he was playing DN, in his kick slide would lift his outside foot off the ground, because no matter how strong you are or no matter how much you weigh, if you're playing with one foot, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So Reggie White was a master. As soon as that guy lifted the foot off the ground, he clubbed him. Okay. And the guy had no balance.
He went flying.
Yeah, the guy went flying. I mean, that's the way the kinds of things offensive linemen look at. So it's not a matter of, can Gabe Hall go in the weight room and bench press 500 pounds? That's not what we're talking about.
That's right.
It's how do you use your hands? Do you place them right? What they teach a lot of guys is to put their hands, and I know people can see me, put hands like right in this area, because no one's natural reaction is to go like this. That's not a natural athletic reaction. No one does this. So they teach guys to try to, get your hand right in here. Mm-hmm. And then guys get off balance because it's just one of those spots. So, and then you can play off that and do any number of other things.
Hey, that one guy in the group chat who hit a 5-leg parlay week 1 and he wouldn't shut up about it for the rest of the season? Sounds like Caplan, right? Yeah, it could be him. It could be you. And we would all want to be you. MyBookie makes it stupid easy to get in on the action, whether it's college ball, NFL, super contest, and survivor pools, all the spreads, player props, and in-game lines that you could want all under one roof. What more could you want than that? If you're new to MyBookie, use our code, THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS, the birds. Use the code, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. There is no better time to jump in right now. No better place to play. Football is back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. Yep.
Greg, the other guy, Hall's a second-year player, but the other guy that fans are fascinated with, number 94, Ty Robinson. What are your thoughts on his game?
Now, he's the exact opposite of Hall. Ty Robinson is a power player at this point in his career. His game's built on power and strength. He's a straight line power player. He's got to improve his lateral quickness. He does have a tendency, in my opinion, to play a little high and upright. So I think he's one of those hard-nosed, tough guys that probably needs work. Yeah. I'd be surprised. You never know. And I've learned over the years, you don't make definitive statements, but I'd be surprised if he's a major contributor this year in terms of number of snaps. It doesn't mean he's never going to play, but I can't see him being truly a part of the rotation, or he plays 20, 25 snaps a game, certainly early in the season.
Right. That's interesting. It makes you wonder from two standpoints. Let's say Moro Ojomo gets hurt, has to miss 3 games.
And by the way, you guys would know, I've heard he's had a really good camp.
Unbelievable.
Moro? Yes.
Yeah. So if Moro Ojomo were to get hurt, that hurts their 5-man front and their 4-man front. I would think that Gabe Hall would be next man up in their 5-man front. But in their 4-man pass rush front, I would wonder if they would just kick a defensive end inside instead of trying to go with Ty Robinson for your man up, because you've got 4 or 5 edge rushers now. I would wonder if maybe you'd kick a Jalyx Hunt inside with Jalen Carter and then have Ojulari and Uche on the outside.
And again, Uche was a guy that when he was in New England moved around. I mean, depending on how they feel about him, he could do that.
Is he big enough? He looks
maybe not. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. But Robinson is not at this point an inside pass rusher.
One thing I thought also, Greg, just against the run, because, and a lot of rookies do this, there were a couple of those zone runs where he kind of shot the gap and let the bubble open for the running back, where I think that was just, they tell rookies to make a mistake at 100 miles per hour. And I felt like maybe he just needed
he's got some knockback power. That's his game. I just think he's got a little work to do overall. And, don't forget, what was he, a 4th or 5th round pick?
Tie 4th.
Yeah. I mean, look, you'd obviously love for him to be part of the rotation, but it's not as if he was a 1st or 2nd round pick. Sure. He needs, I guarantee they knew he needed work. But he's just I had a chance at the combine because he was there to talk to Matt Rule, who I've known, for years since he was at Temple. And obviously Matt Rule coached him. And he said the kid is all football. The kid loves it. He works his tail off. He'll do anything you ask him to do. The Eagles go for those guys, because they can coach them. They build them up. Well, look at Ajomo. I thought Ajomo was worthy of a 3rd or 4th round pick personally, based on his college tape. It didn't play out that way. But look where, how he's progressed. The Eagles like those kinds of kids.
Well, speaking of a guy who should have gone high, and he did, is Jihaad Campbell, Greg. What were your thoughts on his preseason?
I've been really impressed. Really impressed.
Okay.
They have really clearly worked with him, and I talked to someone in the building on being more physical, and it's starting to show up on tape because that's what he was not in college. The guy is a freakish athlete. That showed up on tape in college, and you saw bits and pieces of it watching the preseason. Again, I watched all his snaps as well. I said that there's a natural quickness to Campbell. He's an active player with a looseness and ease to his movement. But there were snaps of stack and shed physicality in the run game playing downhill, and I was really happy to see that because he didn't really do that at Alabama. Because don't forget, we haven't talked in a while. We'll just remind people that he went to Alabama as a pass rusher, and they had Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, so they moved him to stack backer. But, I wonder if the Eagles would consider, depending on, maybe he can become a guy who can rush the quarterback, depending on how the season plays out. You never know.
Well, his first sack came from a creeper sim type pressure.
So they're going to use, as I recall, though.
Say it again.
I think he was unblocked, though. Correct.
Right. I think that's the sim. The sim worked. It broke down the protection scheme.
Right.
Flying through. Yeah.
Right. But no, he can do that. But I've been really impressed. He's and just the athleticism just jumps off the film. This guy. I'm not one who makes predictions, but I'd be hard pressed to think Nakobe Dean's getting his job back. But that's just me. This kid's 6'3", 240. And he freaking moves. This kid's a superior athlete.
Awesome. Let's finish it off on the back end. The 2 corners we wanted you to look at, Greg, were the newcomer Jakorian Bennett and the rookie Mac McWilliams, who played the slot and the outside. Vic seems to have taken a liking to Mac McWilliams.
I like him a lot. I liked his tape in college. He played inside, he played outside. He can play man coverage and he can recover when he's initially beaten. I think ultimately he might be better equipped to play in the slot. He doesn't have the ideal length you like, but he can play outside. He's competitively tough. There's a swagger to his game. He's got balance. He's got body control. He's laterally explosive. He can change direction in tight spaces. I like this kid. I liked his college tape, and I thought that you saw that, because he played a lot of snaps in the preseason. I think he played every snap in the final game. So believe it or not, I watched the entire final game. But he played every snap in the final game. And, there's something there with that kid. I like him. I don't know. Look, it's a long season, okay? It's just starting, in a week. At this point, from what I gather, Adoree Jackson's going to start opposite Quinyon Mitchell. But it's a long season. Guys get hurt. Has Adoree Jackson played a full season in a number of years? I don't think he has he?
I don't think so. He didn't play the whole year with the Giants last year. I know that.
Yeah. So, we're going to see how all this maps out. Because McWilliams can play on the outside. Maybe it's not ideal, but he can play on the outside.
He didn't practice. They did cross-trade him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Of course, now you're going to ask me about Jakorian Bennett.
Yep.
And Jakorian Bennett was a guy who last year, for whatever reason, I saw a lot of the Raiders defense. It's just what it's just one of those things. It depends on who they're playing. And I tell you what, I liked him coming out too of Maryland. Jakorian Bennett is another feisty kid. I saw games in which he matched up to Cortland Sutton. I saw games in which he matched up to Jamar Chase. He matches up to these guys. I mean, I like him. I mean, when they made that trade, because I'm not at training camp, so I don't know how everything's going. Yeah. But I thought to myself, it wouldn't surprise me if down the road he becomes the starter opposite Mitchell, because I think he can do that.
Interesting. Does he was described to me as a little bit of similar traits or similar to Kelee Ringo in that he's a very good athlete, but just a little stiff hip. Does that show up?
Yeah, but I don't think he's as stiff as Ringo. Okay. Ringo to me, and I hate to say it, he's just on the high level of stiff. Like he just can't stop and change direction.
Yeah, there were some preseason snaps that showed that.
Yeah, I mean, look, think about what teams do in the preseason, okay? Think about the Jamar Chase touchdown against Ringo. That was zero coverage. Vic Fangio publicly came out and said he would never call that coverage in that situation, but it's preseason. He wants to see how guys react.
Right.
I mean, that's what teams do. That's why you can't get caught up in preseason football as far as a lot of things, because teams, work on specific things. Okay. And look, Ringo's not the only guy Jamar Chase has done that to, but you saw that he struggles to stop. And then he has to change direction and redirect. That's not his game. And the Eagles play a lot of off coverage on the outside. Yeah, can you press in quarters? Of course you can, and they do. But they probably play more off coverage with their corners than true press. And when you're playing an off coverage, you have to be able to transition, change direction, redirect. Ringo with his physical traits is much better suited to be a press man corner, but that's not what the Eagles defense is as a foundation.
Right. All right. Great stuff. That is a look at, we didn't give Greg everybody. We just wanted to ask him about certain guys' preseason snaps. The next time we hear from Greg and us three are doing this show is going to be inside the tape, breaking down that Eagles Cowboys week 1 season opener Thursday night. We'll do offense, we'll defense, we'll do it like we do every year. And then we got Greg for 19, at least more weeks after that. So Greg, always good to get our appetites wet early here, a little appetizer of what's to come. And thank you for that preseason breakdown. So for Greg Cosell and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching a special edition of Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell on Inside the Birds.